Well, welcome to the second episode of the Paris High School Quarterback Club Coaches Show. In just a few minutes, you'll get to hear from Coach Tyler Clark and see a few highlights of last week's game. With me is Eric Wells, the president of the Quarterback Club. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. We finished up week 3 at playing at Boonville. It was a rough week, Jackie.
Well, and you know, we knew this coming in. It was going to be a tough game. But I'll tell you this. I think if you told Paris fans at the beginning of the year, you know, you got 0 weeks. So when we say week 3, it's really 4 games. But you say after week 3, 4 games in, you're sitting 2-2. I think most Paris fans would have been on board with that after last season.
I agree, and I think we're ready to move on from week 3 and looking forward to week 4. But we need to get into some of this with Coach Clark. Again, it was a 49-12 loss for the Eagles over at Boonville Field. It was their homecoming, and I sure got sick of hearing those horns and hearing that cannon. Those fireworks
you and me
off.
both. And you know, that actually have had a lot of like questions asked about that. And you know, I actually spent some time today to look this up. And number one, it was measured at almost 120 decibels in the visiting stands last week. And number two, the rule book actually says anything that can't supply its own power can't be used. And so do with that what you will. But we got sick of hearing the horn last week, and that was, you know, Boonville put up some points, and they put them up in a hurry. There were a few bright spots in there. We're going to go over those, and then we'll talk about some things that we need to adjust because we don't get much time.
We don't have much time, and Lamar plays a very similar style of offense to Boonville. Some of the good things, and we'll have Coach Clark just momentarily. You know, I thought Chase Watts had a pretty good ball game, did some heady stuff when he was under pressure, made some mistakes. Sophomores are going to make mistakes. And we had a few broken plays that we made something out of nothing. And we're a young team and learning, and I think those are important steps along the way.
I agree. Even in a loss this lopsided, there was some positive takeaways there. We're going to discuss those and discuss some of the progress that's being made, and we're going to look forward to homecoming week. So stay with us. Coach Clark will be joining us for the Quarterback Club Coaches Show. We're back. We have head coach Tyler Clark with us. Coach, thanks for joining us. And I know it's not a week that you probably just want to jump in and just explain everything that went on that night. But let's take a few minutes and just break down Friday night.
Sure. Well, Coach, it was a tough start. We've had, I guess, now 4 tough starts. Finally, we did kind of, after they scored a couple touchdowns, we did kind of settle in and have a pretty good offensive series, and we also had a pretty good defensive stand. You want to briefly talk about those?
Yeah, the slow starts. You know, I think 2 of our 4 slow starts were due to we were playing really good football teams, and I think the other 2 of those 4 slow starts were kind of self-inflicted type deals. But regardless, we've got to cut it out. We've got to get better with that. And then, you know, offensively with our drives, we kind of hit on it last week a little bit. The more comfortable these kids get, the less and less that's going to happen. But when you have so many sophomores and young kids that you're counting on, sometimes it's going to take a little while to start.
Well, let's talk about that offensive series that we scored on in the first half. And particularly, I'd like to ask you a little bit about number 8's play, Chase Watts, our starting quarterback. You know, he kind of dug something out of nothing a few times.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've talked with Chase multiple times. Chase is going to be a really good quarterback before it's all said and done. He's not quite there yet, and, you know, that kid shows up every day ready to work. He knows it, and he's ready to get better. But, you know, Chase is sometimes he'll extend the play. He'll attempt to extend the play, and he'll lose 20 yards getting sacked. And then there's other times where he's going to extend the play, and he's going to rifle 150 yards, and we're going to go score a touchdown. So you have to take the good with the bad there, but we have been working on the decision making. And yeah, when we see something there, let's go ahead and make it happen, whether it's good or bad. But there's also times when we got to tuck that ball and just take the hit, take the sack for -5 instead of -20. And I thought he did an outstanding job of doing that Friday night. I was really pleased.
Well, I know on that big touchdown play to Martinez, he came back to the ball. Watt stepped up, made the throw. Keller Keene did a great job of blocking downfield to go ahead and make that touchdown happen. And as a matter of fact, Keller was involved in another broken play. I think you guys were running the bubble, and Keller came through.
Yeah, Keller is one of those kids that he's kind of like an unsung hero for our football team. For some reason, he's never the main guy. He's never in the limelight, whether it's offense or defense. But the kid just gives max effort all the time. And that means so much to a football team and to our coaching staff. And, last year he gave a ton of effort too. But with an offseason under his belt, he's playing a lot better football this season. So that's pretty exciting to us too.
Good.
Coach, on those broken plays, one thing I noticed, and then part of this was because when I was taking pictures, I was following the wrong receiver. But everybody tracked with Chase. When the play broke down, saw something we haven't seen in the past, and that was all of the receivers flooded to his side of the field. And that's really ultimately what got the one touchdown.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a drill we try to work at least once a week, while the offensive line is down doing, inside run, working on our run game. During our offensive skill individual period, we try to set aside 5 or 10 minutes for scramble drill where we're going to call a play and get into our route. And then when the whistle blows, now the play's broken down, we're going to have a quarterback. Usually our quarterbacks are down with inside run with the offensive line. But we'll have Coach Baxter, another coach there to throw. And we're all working on not only coming back to the football, but coming back to the football at different levels. We don't all want to be coming back at 5 yards. We want a guy at 5, a guy at 15, a guy at 20, So there's some work that has to be done there. Our kids have done a really good job.
Yeah, you could tell a difference. And paid off against a very good defense. The other thing we want to talk about, and probably a lot of people that were there at the game, you're going to be talking about, there were 10 personal foul penalties in that game. And so we've had the luxury of watching the tape. And so, it's one of those things, when your players are guilty, when there's a lot of other stuff going on. You just tell us about, kind of your take on how that night went.
Well, I would say probably, I'm not going to say half, but 3 or 4 of those personal fouls were kind of ticky-tack, and it's one of those deals the referees are trying to get the game under control, which that's going to happen. That's not a Boonville Paris thing. That's going to happen anywhere. The game did get a little chippy, and I think Boonville is at fault for that, and I think Paris is at fault for that. Both sides have an attitude of they want to get after it, and I'll be honest with you, I was proud to see a little bit of fight from our kids, but there's also a line that you can't cross, and we certainly don't want them crossing that line. So, that's something that was addressed this weekend and on Monday at practice that, I love the fight. I love the attitude that we have, that we're not scared of anyone. We're not going to back down from anyone, but we've also got to be smart about it.
Awesome. Well, right before we go to break, I want you to break down the last scoring play there. Second half, you got some different faces in there. You got a young man that I don't know that we've heard a visiting team pronounce Gerke's name correctly. It started out as Jerk or something like that when they started. Finally got it to Gerke by the end of you could tell somebody in the booth was feeding him information. So I think they got it right by the time he scored. But can you tell us a little bit about that play?
Yeah, pretty basic play. It was Texas Ride is 32 is what we call that. It's a trap play. And, at that point we're getting young guys reps, which no one wants to be at that point where we get blown out getting young guys reps. But it is valuable.
Right.
Make no mistake, it's valuable. Tyler Gerke is going to have to contribute at running back a little bit this year and a lot next year. And those are valuable reps that he's getting against a quality second group. But we did a good job blocking it up. Tyler did a good job of keeping the ball high and tight and getting where he needed to get, and we scored off of it. Now, we have kind of a motto on our team. That's great and well, but we're not going to celebrate, second half touchdowns in a mercy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We're not going to celebrate it, but tip of the cap to you.
Absolutely.
Well, real quick, Coach, I think we're going to break away here for a short break, but I wanted to ask you about Blaze Woods. He didn't see the rock too many times.
He didn't.
And maybe this week be a little different?
I think it will be. You know, Blaze is and something people don't. Well, something that all people don't understand is the game is different now than it used to be. And I know used to a lot of guys play both ways, but styles of offenses have changed, games have changed. You know, in 20, 30 years ago, you'd have about 120 plays in a football game. Well, now with the stoppage of clock, because people are throwing the ball more, now you're looking at 160 to 180 plays a game. That stuff adds up. And, you know, Blaze is a two-way starter for us, and he's really good for us on offense and defense. So it takes a little bit of toughness out of him to run the football like he does and still run around and make tackles. But he also knows we expect that out of him, and I think you're going to see a lot more Blaze this week.
Sounds good.
All right, well, Coach, we appreciate it. We'll be right back, and we're going to take a look at what is coming next with homecoming.
All right, we're back. Well, we're moving on to week 4. We have Lamar this week at home. Lamar's coming in with a 3-1 record with a loss to Cedarville, who has proven to be pretty salty this year in and of themselves. We're coming in with a 2-2 record, Coach. I've watched or had the opportunity to watch a little bit of the Lamar Cedarville film, and it looks to me like Lamar plays a very similar style of offense to Boonville.
They do. They play a very similar style. Matter of fact, we're going to be seeing the exact same plays. We're going to see, you know, jet. We're going to see power. We'll see slam. You know, trap. All that good stuff that the wing T offense is about. The only difference is they will get into a double tight, as to where Boonville was always one tight end, one receiver. They like to base out a double tight, and every once in a while, Lamar will get into spread and get in doubles and try to play that way a little bit.
Well, I know that obviously we missed some assignments last week. We got beat some last week. I guess my question for you is, what's the key this week to figuring out this Lamar puzzle that we couldn't quite get figured out with Boonville?
Well, the key, and it's going to be this way all year, the key to beating or competing with, whatever you want to call it, with Lamar is getting us better. You know, Lamar is what they are, and we're going to work on them. You know, we're working against their fronts, their coverages, defensively what they do. But at the end of the day, every day when we go onto the practice field as coaches, and I think the players know this too, we're focused on making the Paris Eagles better. You know, we're not a good enough football team yet to drop all of our focus onto Lamar or Boonville or anyone that we play. We've got to split focus a little bit. We're going to focus on Lamar, but we've also got to get the Paris Eagles better too.
Well, it's homecoming week. There's going to be parades and pep rallies and all stuff that you can imagine going on. I'm certain my daughter was in a tutu one day this week in cowboy boots, even at the elementary school. So there's lots of distractions. How do you, as a football coach, manage that and manage to get your guys ready to play ball?
Well, you know, it's one of those things we tell our kids all the time. Homecoming, every town in America has homecoming, and homecoming is a wonderful tradition, and we're happy to have it. I mean, it's great, but you know, the dressing up during the week, the pep rallies, the parades, all that stuff, it's all wonderful, but that's kind of for everyone outside of the football team. You know, that's not quite for us. That's for everyone else to celebrate Paris and Paris's past and everything about that, which is, again, great. But it's super important for our kids to, you know, have fun and be a part of that stuff, but also stay locked in on what we're trying to do, what our game plan is, and being ready for Lamar. And we talked about it today after practice. You got to have a little bit of mental toughness as a player on Friday night of a homecoming game about 6 o'clock, because you've been through a pep rally, you've been through the parade, all this different stuff. And to be honest with you, coaches and players, like I said, about 6 o'clock on Friday night, you'd probably just as soon rather take a nap than go play a football game. So it's going to take some mental toughness to kind of block that out and say, yeah, I'm a little bit tired, but you know what? The guys on the other sideline aren't very tired, and they're ready to go. So I got to match that intensity.
You know, Coach, and Eric and I kind of played in the same era back in the early '90s. And back then, in fact, that 1990 team's got their picture out there. I was a great spectator on the sidelines in a uniform for that team. But I'll tell you this: when we played that year, it was tough. Like there were no off weeks. Greenwood was about as easy a team as we even had back then. 4 of the top 5 teams in the state were in the conference, and only 2 got to go to the playoffs that year.
Right.
It was a different era, and I get that, and some of those teams are already up into 4A. But this conference we're in now is tough.
It is.
If you look across the state, there may be one other conference that's as deep as this one. I don't know if anybody's as deep top to bottom, but there's some other teams that got a couple of conferences that got a couple of tough teams.
Yeah, the conference with Camden, Harmony Grove, Rising, McGee, Smackover, those guys. That's a pretty tough conference, but it's all very top heavy. Our conference, I think, hands down, is the deepest. About every game we have left on our schedule, to be honest with you, maybe outside of one team, is going to be a really, really tough ball game for us.
Yeah, and I hope that, and I think we're seeing this now, especially after the Cedarville win last week over Lamar. We've seen Mansfield, who was my preseason pick to win the conference, has struggled mightily in a few games and not looked good. I think there's a lot of things still up for grabs, and I think a lot of teams are looking at Paris now. They're saying they're a team now we can't look past. We can't just check them off. And I think that has kind of changed the kind of the approach to every Friday night.
No, I think it definitely has. And you talk about teams going up to 4A. You mentioned a little earlier, Lamar's one of those teams. Lamar is going to dress out about 48 kids on Friday night. And there's strength in numbers at this level. It's not so much about how many studs do you have; it's how many do you have total to spell those studs.
Right.
And they're going 4A next year. So it's our conference is very tough, no question.
Right. Next year we'll have one of these teams following us around during the conference, but it's going to look a lot different other than that. But we've got to get through this year.
Right.
We've got 6 of them left, and I think it's going to be 6 of them that are well worth the price of admission.
I think so.
Coach, we thank you for your time and thank you for your insight. We're looking forward to Friday night, and we've got a former quarterback that has a good plan over there on that team in Lamar. And
Cornerback Brian Harrison, junior tight end.
Oh, easy now.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking in with us. Check back next week. We'll be right back. We will be talking about some good news on homecoming.
You bet.